How you guys doing today? It is the True Game Nerd, and today we're going to finish off our Tekken retrospective with Tekken Tag Tournament 2. Now, Tekken Tag Tournament 2 was something that had been asked about for years, and in fact had spawned quite a few fake Photoshop pictures of it, and just a million other weird things. So clearly the fans wanted it. Unfortunately, it would take us probably darn near 13, 14 years before we would get a rendition of Tekken Tag Tournament 2. But it finally did happen, and it hit the PS3 and Xbox 360. So this is my review of Tekken Tag Tournament 2. So, being a big Tekken fan, one of the biggest important things about Tekken has always been the graphics. And as you saw in Tekken 6, they were pushed to a new level. And that's always been the case with every single Tekken game. This one is not the case. The graphics are not as good as they were in Tekken 6, in my opinion. And I know some people are going to disagree with that, and here's kind of my reasoning for that. The textures are not as clean, and I honestly think it's because the character roster is a lot bigger, there's a lot more stages, so some things needed to come down. So because of that, it allows for a little less detail. It doesn't mean that it looks bad. You still have a huge variety in different stages, and the menus and everything like that look really, really good. But if I was to do a little bit of a complaint with this game, the characters just don't look as detailed as in Tekken 6, and that's a little bit disappointing. From a sound standpoint, this game is actually much better than Tekken 6. A lot of the sound effects has been kind of redone to sound a little cleaner, and just little touches on everything. Older characters have gotten a new voiceover, so now Michelle Chang and Jun Kazama have a voice that seems to fit a little better with the way they are supposed to sound and look. That being said, the music is a little lackluster, but still pretty good on most ends. I do like the way that you can now switch the music in between stages, and you can actually purchase the music from Tekken 2 and Tekken 3 and Tekken Tag and pretty much all the old Tekkens. So it's one thing I actually like to do is to swap the music around on each stage and just kind of see what fits. So the sound is great. I love the way everything's mixed. They made some interesting changes to some of the characters' voices, which I'll talk about more so in the design. Now, the gameplay for this game kind of shifts just a little bit. It's not unlike Tekken Tag Tournament 1, but it's made some big improvements. Some of those being with different tag combos, or just different ways that the gameplay works in general. I'm actually a big fan of what they've done to tweak the gameplay, adding special moves and certain item moves that you can do with each character, as well as featuring just a big arsenal of characters. Now, something that I must bring up is I'm not a big fan of what they did with the customization. Because the roster has gotten so much bigger, they've actually limited the amount of things that you can do to customize your character. So no longer can you pick a million different shirts, different colors, different little details, different makeups, but instead you kind of just get a bottom and a top, and maybe 4 or 5 different options for each character. I mean, it's still customization, but that's kind of like doing like going to a SmackDown game and buying WWE 2015 and them swapping the creative palette for the newer games for the old ones for the PlayStation 1. It's just kind of disappointing, as I actually like making every character look very unique in their own way, especially guys like Ogre. Now, on the flip side of that, you can do a lot more things. You can now swap the designs for their actual portrait. You can do all kinds of different tag modes, and thank God Almighty they got rid of that stupid scenario campaign from Tekken 6. So now you can just play the game. Now on the flip side of it, they've shifted some things around, so no matter what difficulty you have the game on, it'll actually get harder as you progress. What I mean is, if you beat the game once, if your character is ranked up while you're beating the game, kind of like the arcade, the characters will get harder. I didn't find this to be too much of a problem, aside from Unknown, who unfortunately is still a pretty cheap boss. He has moves that kill you in one hit. What is nice, however, though, is he's a hell of a lot more beatable than Azazel was, so it makes the game a lot more enjoyable. You can play the game in tag mode, or you can play it in solo mode, or you could do a ghost battle, which case, much like Tekken 6, will take all the characters that you fight online and do its best to mimic their AI, so you can kind of practice without even being online. I enjoy this, and again, solo mode, it takes the difficulty of people like Unknown down just a hair, but I recommend tag mode as it does a lot of cool little tactics, such as certain people will get little sub-bosses and cinematics, things of that nature. The gameplay basically took what was done in Tekken Tag Tournament 1 and improved it on every aspect. I have no complaints as far as gameplay is concerned. Now, talking about the design, I think for a lot of fans it was kind of a hit or miss. A lot of the things in the design were a hit for me. I liked the big variety of stages. I liked that you could actually fight in a kind of a cage match kind of ring. That's really, by the way, the first time that they've really done that in the Tekken series. Unless you count the boss fight of Craig and King in Scenario Campaign in Tekken 6. But I'm pretty sure that most of us don't want to count that. But that being said, all the characters have gotten an overhaul. It's it's the biggest roster that they've ever had in a Tekken game. They brought back everybody except for Gon the dinosaur, but they brought back everybody else. Literally. Bruce is back. All the people from Tekken 5, Lily and Asuka, and those people are of course in. People we haven't seen in a long time, like Michelle Chang and Jun Kazama make a return, Prototype Jack, even Ogre and True Ogre make a return, and they finally explain what the hell Unknown is, which is apparently just another evolution of Jun Kazama, which actually going back to Tekken Tag Tournament 1 makes the ending where Devil kills Juno kind of make a little more sense. That being said, the stages are phenomenal in this game, and while the graphics of the characters themselves aren't that good, the stages almost make up for it. Unknown stage is very unique. Little ideas that if you fall on the ground you get dirty, which was done in Tekken 6, but it's done even cleaner in Tekken Tag Tournament 2. And I just enjoy it. I like seeing the older characters kind of overhauled a little bit, and I like seeing a fresh take on everything. Unfortunately, this game has lackluster endings, much like Tekken 6. This time, I'm going to be a little more lenient on it, and that's because Tekken Tag Tournament 1 also had lackluster endings. And that's because it's just such a big roster. What is cool is some of the endings actually tie into each other now. So it no longer has that weird, annoying habit of just giving you the same ending twice. It will actually tie them in. So it gives you incentive to want to play through the game all the way through and see all the characters' endings. So there you have it, my review on Tekken Tag Tournament 2. On the positive side, this is the largest roster of any Tekken game ever. The stages are incredibly creative and sometimes create a throwback. The ability to change the music around and swap your character's palette is through the roof. Endings are tied into each other, giving you a better reason to actually play through the game. And just a fresh kind of arcade take on the Tekken series that we haven't seen in a very long time. On the negative side, the graphics kind of suffer just a hair. While it is cool to have the ability to swap your character's palette and things like that, it's not so cool when the customizations themselves have been cut more than in half. While it's cool to have the character endings tie in, some of them could be a little longer. So that's my take on Tekken Tag Tournament 2. Big upgrade from Tekken Tag Tournament 1, something that fans were asking for a long time. I think they actually outdid themselves, and I'm going to forgive the graphics. And even for once, I really didn't mention the fact that they speak their own native languages at each other and somehow understand each other. Because I'm just kind of accepting that that's what they do in the Tekken series. I hope that one day they might cut that out, but that's a personal thing with me. This game gets a 9.5 out of 10. It's the first time in a long time that Tekken really hit its mark, I think. Well, Tekken 5 was the last time, but really, not counting Dark Resurrection, Tekken 6 was a bit of a disappointment. So it's cool to see them go back, and I look forward to seeing what they're going to do with Tekken 7, which I hope lives up to the hype, because people have been waiting and waiting and waiting, and you know, as soon as I get my hands on that game, you will get a review. Until then, I will be doing different retrospectives. They may be WWE games or Twisted Metal. Leave me some comments and tell me what games you would like to see me review, and ask and you shall receive. Especially with things starting to slow down now finally, you will be seeing some more frequent reviews in the month of December. So thank you for watching, and if you like what you see, subscribe.